November of last year, 2022, everyone started to talk about ChatGPT. And then after ChatGPT, there was all these AI tools. And as business owners, sales directors, marketing managers, we're getting hit with all these tools every day. My guest today is going to tell us how he has really embraced ChatGPT and how he's using it. My guest today is Matthew McClosky. He is the Director of Sales of Lab Compare, Laboratory Equipment, and Forensics. But before we jump in, my name is Donna Peterson, and you are listening to the B2B Marketing Excellence podcast. I go all over the world talking with business owners, marketing directors, sales directors about their specific industries, what's working, what's not, so that you can get tips and tactics to help your businesses grow into the future. So let's jump in. Hi, Matthew. How are you today?
I'm wonderful, Donna. It's a pleasure to finally speak with you on this exciting subject.
You're not kidding. You and I have had a few conversations wrapped around, ChatGPT and AI tools. And that's why I think you're going to be able to really help the listeners get some value about how you have embraced it and how you're using it. So my first question to you is, I see on LinkedIn, you call yourself an early adopter of ChatGPT. And I'm wondering, why did you adopt it so early? And how are you utilizing it?
Oh, it's a good question. I love technology, just as any technology, whether it's calculator, whether it's a CRM systems, but anything to make our jobs easier. I jumped on chat early on, in November. It's been a little over a year now. And anything that I can put in my back pocket that helps me be more successful and helps me communicate to my audience is wonderful. So I started using it again, back in November, and just talking to it, just practicing. And
I like that, just talking to it.
Sure. Understanding what its capabilities are. And as you know, and most of your listeners, it's changed significantly. Even in the past week, we've noticed some changes as well. But you specifically asked me about how am I using it to help me? Well, first and foremost, I look at chat by completing tasks. So first, I like to take the task that I'm doing, and let's say it's something as simple or as difficult as prospecting for new business.
Okay.
So I try to implement that technology into my flow, figure out how it can help me. And rather than going, forward with chat, I like to define the process of prospecting and try to look at where I want to be.
Okay.
And then I implement chat in that direction. So for instance, I look to the end result as I need to create an engagement.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So I'm going to take chat, I'm going to learn it, maybe a person's LinkedIn profile, maybe learn their URL where they focus, in their business. And then I try to use chat to create a story for me when I first reach out.
Oh, that is what every salesperson needs to be doing if you want your emails to be open and read.
Yes.
I think you and I will both agree, gone are the days of doing like generic sales emails to people to get them to be advertisers or maybe to be subscribers of your magazines. You've got to really make your messaging specific to that individual.
I want to know them before I send the message.
Yes.
And in a sense of that, The talk was if I put Donna's first name in an email, I would have a higher success rate of opening it. There's probably some truth to that, but timing is everything. And but if I can get your attention within 10 seconds and I can tell you a pretty good story within that 10 seconds, and I think I've done a pretty good job. So you talked about the tool. So what I'm looking for is a higher engagement rate. So if I
Mhm.
say, Dear Donna, the old way,
Yeah.
maybe you'll reply to my email. But if
Mhm.
I address it, Dear Donna, and I put, that first paragraph and define, I'm delivering $1 million of opportunities to your competitors, quote unquote, and I can get very specific with, using chat as my assistant and load that first paragraph up, I'm going to be okay.
Yeah.
And one of the advantages I learned about that is once I deliver and build these fluid templates, in chat or conversations, I can always go back to them.
Yes.
And they always learn as more I go.
Yeah.
So if I have a conversation that's world innovators and Donna in that introduction, I can keep feeding it information. And over time, it starts to learn how I interact with you, and I can always go back to it. But remember earlier, I said it's about the tasks, defining those tasks. And that's where I use chat predominantly today, is where in process of day-to-day sales can I define a task and incorporate ChatGPT in it.
Yeah.
And one of the other things I love about it
Yeah.
is you can share those conversations with your colleagues who have also adopted
Mhm.
chat.
Mhm.
So once you do something well, you can share it with someone else, and then you can just build on it.
Yeah. And I think that's important just as an industry as a whole. Everyone has to stop with any generic messaging because you're just giving it a bad reputation for our industries, whether it's marketing or sales. People will be like, oh, marketing doesn't work. Sales aren't working. No one's engaging. Well, that's because you're being generic, or maybe you're doing that very first personalization of the individual name, which, as you mentioned, really was effective years and years ago. Now you must do more. You must really understand the people, and that's what you're doing.
Sure, sure. And also, it helps to have people around you who have also embraced it.
Yes.
And what I've seen, with the people I work with, yeah, AI is all of the talk.
Yeah.
And we see the Google, we see Microsoft, who I think is going to have an advantage because I just updated, was it Windows 11?
Mhm.
And the Windows 11 is on your desktop. It's got that
Okay.
AI assistant right there. And just like we saw with the browsers, once Microsoft put their browser on it, they really had an edge.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I see that as a big advantage. But again, chat as a technologies that I've adopted early on, it's just wonderful to see how it has grown. But aside from the growth of it, it's really also important. I always say practice. You have to practice with it. You have to practice with
Yeah.
it. You have to go into the back end, personalize it. Let it know who you are. I'm Matthew McClosky. I'm the director of sales. My goal is to increase sales 20%. So it has a
Yeah.
little bit of an understanding about who you are.
Yeah.
So
That's
tell
a feature about ChatGPT that I don't think a lot of people are aware of, that you can put that information in there so that the responses you get back would be more like you and your specific brands and your specific clients that you deal with.
Of course, and train it. And then we
Yeah.
just learned, I guess, within the past week that, what is it? There's a new way to address it. So they're defined just like syntax in Google, like to
Mhm.
get better search results. Now Chat GPT is assisting us with how to communicate with it, how to
Yeah.
take maybe samples of your writing and teach it to write more like you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so it's wonderful.
I see that there's other AI platforms out there now where when we do a podcast, I can upload it. And since they're getting the whole podcast interview, they get a feel of how I speak. They get a feel for how my guests speak. So when it generates maybe show notes or even bullets or
Mhm.
quotes, it really reflects the individual. So it sounds like us. Where sometimes with chat, it still is very heavy on the adjectives. Like if you ask for like subject lines like unleash, unpower, it's like, okay, people know that's not how I speak, so I can't use
Of
those subject
course.
lines.
Of course, of course. And that's true too. And then
Yeah.
also, if you instruct it with tone,
Oh,
you can get it to be a little bit more, any tone, if you will,
yeah.
more professional, no hyperbole,
Yeah.
and no first person. Um, and it just adapts and it learns. But you mentioned how you're now using it for your podcast.
Yes.
And what are you ultimately saving? Time.
I save a lot of different things. Um,
Sure.
and every one of my guests is different. So a lot of times I will start, and I use Chat GPT, and I think you do it the same way. Chat GPT is a baseline for me. I don't use it as my end
Mm,
all. I don't have it write complete blogs and then just copy it and paste it onto our website. I don't do that. But if I asked it, what would be a good outline for a blog if I'm writing a blog? Or what would be a good outline for an interview with this person, and tell ChatGPT exactly who they are, maybe even copy and paste their experiences from LinkedIn, paste it in there, and ask what would be real good, engaging questions to ask this guest that our listeners will be interested in. And like I
sure.
said, it gives me a great basis to get started. Sometimes, of course, it's too it's too lengthy. First of all, they give me way too many questions, but that's where I go and I pick and choose 4 or 5 good questions, and then I tweak it based on my relationship with the guest, the industry the guest is in, and the position the guest is holding. But ChatGPT really just gets those creative juices going for me.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think we
Yeah.
used to say writer's block in the past, and
Mhm.
yeah, when you're sitting there and you want to begin, you know how to begin, but you just have that delay, and you can put quote unquote a half an hour into it. Whereas if you prompt accurately, you can get your response within seconds,
Right.
and you just jump right over that curve. And now I just save time. And
Yes.
that's a wonderful, wonderful aspect of chat. Again, it's a wonderful tool. But we've all heard about the controversies. What was
Yes.
recently Sports Illustrated? Somebody was fired there for cut and paste. We've heard stuff about law,
Lawyers.
interpreting
Yeah.
law.
Yeah.
But, before you copy and paste, make sure you read it,
Yes.
and then make sure you let your readers know that it was helped, this blog or this post
Assisted.
was assisted with Chat
Yeah.
GPT.
So
And
you said a word a minute ago. You said begin. For our listeners who are here, and some people are leery about going on to ChatGPT. They're worried about privacy issues. They're really worried about how to really get started. If someone is just getting started with ChatGPT, what would be a few, like 3 steps that they should use to get started? What should they do?
sign up.
I
Sign up. Yeah, do
like
the
that.
free.
Turn on the computer.
Turn on the computer. At the end of the day, we're all judged by the work.
Yeah.
And my recommendation, and even with my children and friends and people who ask for the advice, is you have to pay the $20 a month to get access to those wonderful features.
Yeah.
I mean, $20 a month, what is that? I mean, it's really nothing. And if it's going to help you do your job quicker. It's well worth it. But you said the three things. So I would say just get right into it.
Mhm,
First and foremost.
mhm.
Second of all, know the environment. Go underneath the settings, go underneath your account and learn everything there because it's going to determine quote unquote output of chat. And I guess the last part is learn and practice on prompting.
Mhm.
They use a term, it's called like prompt engineering and stuff. And yeah, it's wonderful. And we've heard all of these acronyms for it, like race, give it a role and action and whatnot. And then we just learned the past week, chat has a different way of approaching it, but practice. So those three things: sign on, understand the environment, and just practice with prompting. And if I can say practice with prompting, I would also align that. Don't ask it how to make a grilled cheese sandwich. Think of something that you do each day and look at that time that task takes and try to shorten it. So try to go to the end part of the task that you want to do and walk backwards and use that walking backwards to define the prompt that you want on the output.
Yeah.
So those three things I think are so important. Sign up, learn the environment, and understanding prompting.
I think those are great steps, and that understanding the environment, I think that one needs to be stressed a lot, because if you understand the environment, then you'll know better what type of prompting to put. But you'll also learn, the more you work with it, you'll realize that as you get, and this, people should understand that if you're not on ChatGPT already, when you put in a prompt, it generates a response, but you're also able to say, oh, can you regenerate a new response for me? Well, maybe you didn't like that response, or you can tell that response, make this sound a little bit more professional. And so you can always tweak whatever response you got. You can just keep
Absolutely.
asking more and more questions, which really helps you get exactly what you want from it. And it's very helpful.
Absolutely. It is an assistant. And just like our conversation here is fluid, so is that conversation or that prompt with chat. Now, I would ask you, Donna, did I miss anything during our conversation? And you would pleasantly remind me, yes. So, we said we were going to talk about this. It's the same and it is very similar with
Yeah.
ChatGPT and prompting. And again, that third most important, understanding the prompt. Now, the last instruction on that prompt, if you will, you can say, can you give me any feedback if I missed anything?
Yes. Yeah.
And it's, again, a live assistant sitting next to you, helping you do a task faster and more efficient. And don't feed it any personal information, not yet.
No, don't do that. Another way that I've used ChatGPT, I know we've been talking about, putting a prompt down there and help it generate us new content, but I've done it where I'll take content I've already written, I'll copy it and I'll paste it in saying, does this sound professional? Does this sound like I'm hitting on these three topics? Just so that it just double checks. Sometimes it comes back and it'll say, yes, this is professional, but sometimes it gives me advice saying, Donna, you should mention something about this, or this. And it just helps me be a more complete writer.
I think so. I mean, for sure, for sure. Again, that is the task that you're looking to complete. I also look at using that same technique, when crafting an email, and just check it for grammar and clarity.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and it shorten it up.
Mhm.
Did I hit those points? Yeah.
I did that. I did something the other day and it ended up being almost a page worth, where really all I wanted was three really detailed sentences. And then I said, can you please condense this into three detail? And it did. It did a great job of it, putting those top points in those three sentences, and just made it very short and effective for me.
Absolutely. It's a wonderful tool. It's a wonderful tool, and it helps with that time and saving it on tasks. And it's funny you mentioned earlier, you said, "Hey Donna," so you have set up your environment, all right? So in that environment, how do you want to be addressed? Donna, and it's pretty mesmerizing. Also, when it gives you the results, I like how it just types it out like somebody is on the other end, and that's a little freaky to think it's communicating. Sometimes I think maybe it can put it out all at once, but the
Mhm.
fact that it looks like someone's typing it is concerning but welcoming, I guess. But
It is, it
again,
is,
those,
it
yeah,
is
yeah,
scary, but this is the time that companies really need to, and I'm not saying jump on and do everything with ChatGPT. And I'm not a big proponent of chasing after the shiny objects, but I do feel that it isn't going to go away. And you've got to start
no,
researching it and looking into it. And like you said, just talk with it, play with it, and then see how can you utilize it in your business and maybe how you don't want to utilize it in your business, but just be able to start making some informed decisions because you've tried it.
absolutely, Donna. I remember when in the office, we had computers, but they didn't allow us to have access to the internet. And slowly there was that adoption, and eventually you got a computer at your office preloaded. You can go to any website, go anywhere on now. They lock some sites down, but it's the same idea. It will take time to get implemented. Everybody says they have an AI,
Yeah.
but in short, it's software. It's
Mhm.
software to help make customer service more friendly, quicker, and again, I repeat, from the standpoint of sales, and where it helps me is just to be able to create those tasks and take templates that I used, maybe, canned responses, and now I can have fluid templates with it.
Yeah.
So now my templates aren't quote unquote canned, but now they're pumped out of AI and a more fluid, a little bit different, but the same succinct message. It's wonderful.
It's wonderful because now, because you're able to give these kind of messages to people, you start to form those relationships. And everything now for a business to grow into the future has to be about cultivating relationships that really instill trust, because there's so many companies out there. How do people pick and choose who to work with? Well, they're going to
Of
work with
course,
brands they trust.
absolutely,
Yeah.
of course. And that is the hard work.
Yeah.
And that hard work is now we have a pocket assistant that can help us with that. But
So,
again, it comes down to that individual being willing to use it and implement it.
right, right. So now we're talking about it being assistant. Have you ever come across, I'm sure you have, what type of challenges have you come across, or what type of warnings would you put out there for people who are starting to use Chat GPT?
Mm. Don't really have many warnings. First, don't put any personal information, don't put company information in it. I was trying to use it at home. I'll share a quick story, and I keep a spreadsheet of my budget. It's the way I've been taught. We used to have it on paper, moved it to Excel, and many years later in Google Sheets. But essentially, I thought I was doing a pretty good job with it. So I figured, you know what? Let me see if there's a better way. So I started to talking to Chat GPT. I won't get into where I ended up, but I had a lot of financial data in there, and I had the opportunity to upload it, and I didn't. So I would say just be very cautious about feeding it stuff now. I don't know what could happen potentially, but it's telling us not to do that. Don't
Yeah,
upload customer information from a business standpoint or company information. Keep it, fairly simple. And
yeah,
a company name, a URL, what a person does with their LinkedIn profile, which is all public domain. I would
yeah,
say start there, but don't get too personal with it. They
That was
probably
one of
already
the
know everything anyway.
Right, they do. And whatever's out there, they know it. So I recently in October, I gave a speech to manufacturers about utilizing ChatGPT and AI tools. And at the end of the speech, one of the big questions were, well, what about our privacy? What about our proprietary information? And I said, well, don't put it on there. Or if you want ChatGPT to analyze something, and I showed them how I did this by analyzing results, I just changed it to promotion A through Z. I got rid of
Sure.
the, specific details. They could see opens, click rates, and then they give us analysis of which were our best ones, which weren't, but nothing that anyone else could have utilized. But meanwhile, it did analyze the data I had, but nothing anyone else could use. And that's, I think, one of the biggest warnings to people is just don't put anything out there you wouldn't want to share with the world.
Like email, before you send an email, do you picture your boss, your parents, your spouse, everybody behind you, and before you click send? I think it's a very similar concept. And one of the things I like about it is when you practice, there's a lot of information and data sets that you can get online just by doing a Google search. A dummy data set, and just play with it. One little fun trick was to upload the state of New Jersey data into it and just talking to it. And I found out, where its limitations are. It's only going to take 516 megabytes of data before it says no more. But again, practice, practice, practice. But taking public available data and uploading to it and talking to it, tax information. I personally looked at salary information, and it was, who are the top 10 highest paid, public salaries in New Jersey? What areas? I mean, it's pretty intuitive. So I would start there with your practice.
Yeah, that
But
is a
nothing
great,
live.
yeah, that's a great suggestion. I've never given that suggestion to anyone because I just jumped in using actual information we had. But you're right. If a company is leery, start with data that's out there already. Just
Yeah.
start to analyze it yourself, putting in questions and seeing what the responses are so that you could see how you could possibly use it and if you want to use it for that.
Of course, of course. And then we saw Google jump into the AI, like with their Google Sheets and
Yes.
whatnot,
Yeah.
and you can talk right at that top level, like an assistant. Again, Donna, what do you see here? Well, it's
Yeah.
obvious, income, expenses, this is exceeded. Can you put a chart together? So I don't want to say long gone are the days of pivot tables because it's just another tool on how to create one, but by golly, it can really interpret in real time in conversation.
And quickly. Because as I mentioned, when I put all those promotions in, I could analyze which were the top promotions, but within
Sure.
seconds, it gave me a lowdown of these are your top, these are your negatives, and then it compared opens to clicks. And so it just gave me a quick overview in a short period of time. So
Sure.
now, obviously, you like ChatGPT. You're a big proponent of ChatGPT. My final question to you is, what do you foresee for the future? Where are we going?
Mhm. Everybody likes to talk about, there's two sides to it. I'm
Yeah.
not really comfortable talking about robots taking over and stuff like that because they've been talking about that ever since they released the sundial or a typewriter or a computer. I understand that. But where I see it going for business is it's going to be on every desktop. Learn how to use it, learn how to practice with it. It's going to be part of our lives moving forward in so many aspects. But learn, how do I say this? Stick with one. So no
Yeah.
matter where you are, you quote unquote take it with you. I see that assistant as very powerful, regardless if you're at work or whether you're at home or whether you're amongst friends, make sure that AI assistant is with you everywhere. So I see the future of it in all business applications, whether we're interacting with them directly or you have advanced users, or let me say that again, interacting with them directly, like advanced users, or part of the software that you already have, like maybe Clippy on the search tool.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's not going anywhere.
All right. Well, Matthew, I want to thank you very much for your time today. I really think our listeners are going to get a lot out of this because some people are nervous and they don't know how to get started. And I think you gave them some great ideas on how to jump in, get started, talk with it. I loved when you said that. Just talk with it.
Absolutely.
That'll help
Practice.
them. Yeah. So thank you very much.
Always a pleasure, Donna. Nice to see you again.
Nice to see you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you for listening to the B2B Marketing Excellence podcast. Please hit the subscribe button below so you don't miss our next episode. And in the meantime, if you'd like to talk to me, please feel free to send me an email to dpeterson@worldinnovators.com. Till next time, have a great day.